Good morning, everyone. How was everyone's week? Mine was pretty good. Got a lot of things done. We are starting to build our house, but they were supposed to start this past week, and of course, it hasn't rained in forever, and it started raining this week, so we didn't get to start. But that's all right. It was still a good week. So today we're going to talk about the parable of I draw a blank. That's awesome. The Good Samaritan. We're going to talk about the Good Samaritan. And last week we spoke about what a parable was, and a parable is to tell a story and to teach someone a lesson through that story, right? So this is another parable that Jesus taught us through this story. He taught us how to be a good neighbor. So basically, what I want to know is what does it mean to be a good neighbor? Do you guys know who your neighbors are? We moved this year, and so we're just now getting to know our neighbors. My birthday was yesterday, and actually one of my neighbors from down the street brought us some tomatoes and zucchini for my birthday, which is really cool because that's like two of my favorite vegetables. So that was really nice of them. My old neighbors, I really miss them. We lived by them for a long time. And one thing we would do is we would each watch our house. So if one of us went on vacation, the other one would watch the house. And if they noticed something not right, they would give us a call and check out if those people were supposed to be there or whatever. So that was our way of being good neighbors. So I just want you to think about how you could be a good neighbor and what that would mean to you. All right, so the story in the Bible today is in Luke chapter 10, and it's verses 25 through 37. Okay, here we go. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked. So I'm going to go over an expert in the law. What do you think he was? Do you know what that means? I wonder if he was a politician. We all love politicians, don't we? Sorry, I shouldn't have done that. All right, teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? What is written in the law? He replied. How do you read it? He answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. You have answered correctly, Jesus replied. Do this and you will live. But he wanted to justify himself, so he asked, and who is my neighbor? In reply, Jesus said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where this man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to the inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for an extra expense you may have. Which of these do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robber? The expert in the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. Jesus told him, go and do likewise. So you see in this story, 2 people saw this man who was in need of help. And instead of helping him, they just passed by him. They went to the other side of the road actually to avoid him and passed by. And the third one, who was the least likely to stop, they say in this book, he stopped and he helped him. And not only did he help him a little bit, I mean, he went the extra mile. He bandaged him up, took him to have a place to stay, and then made sure someone would help take care of him and paid for that. So I think that's a really good answer of who's a neighbor. They may not live next to you. I gave you examples of neighbors I actually lived by, but I think what this story is saying is that anyone in our community, anyone in our society is our neighbor. We should take care of each other. I think this gets lost a lot. Sometimes people say, well, we don't know them, it's not our problem. Or maybe they'll say someone else will do it, you know. Sometimes we need to take that responsibility on ourselves so that we can show that we're a good neighbor. I want you to think of a time that you may have helped taking care of someone or someone's taking care of you. I know that when my kids are sick, I make sure I take care of them and get them something to eat and make sure they're comfortable and get their medicine to them. Can you think of times where people have done that for you? Or maybe you've tried to help someone to feel better as well? There are many different ways you could be a good neighbor. Another way is donating your clothes to a family that may be in need. We've donated clothes to people that have had a fire before. So that's another way to be a good neighbor. And again, it's not necessarily someone you know. It could be someone, a complete stranger. Of course, you always want to be safe with that, but and make sure your parents know what you're doing. And I would actually have your parents involved in it. But that's how you can be a good neighbor, is just making sure you're taking care of others in the community. One thing, I don't know if you know what the word profession is, but when we get older, we all have jobs, and we all have different things we do. So there's different professions. There's zookeeper. I know that Liam, he wants to be a zoologist when he grows up, and they help take care of animals. They study animals, and so that's something he wants to do. What I do to help with people is I'm actually a physical therapist, and I help people learn how to walk again. I help people get stronger. I help people with their pain, and I specifically work with children. And so that's really rewarding for me to be able to teach them things that they couldn't do before. And not only that, it's rewarding to them because now they can do things in their life that they couldn't do before. So that's kind of my job, and to give back to the community. And there are different ways you can do that through your jobs and through other services as well. I know that our church, we give to Helping Hands, which helps our community as well. So that's donations with money and things like that, and that goes to people in the community to help with bills or other things that they may need help with. So there's this book I want you guys to look up. It's a really neat book. I don't have it on hand, and I wish I did. I tried to get the digital version, and I couldn't. They didn't have it available, so I was going to read it to you today. But the book is called A Bus Called Heaven by Bob Graham. And it's a really neat kids book, and I would recommend you all reading that. It's a really good example on how we're all from different places and we all can be a good neighbor. So I want you to think about that because it's a really neat book and it gives really good examples. So in today's Bible story, the man who was hurt and the Good Samaritan were considered different. From different places, people, they were known to not like each other, actually, not these two in particular, but where these two cultures were from. There's certain cultures that don't get along with other cultures for whatever reason. And so these two were an example of that. So that's why they said that it was even more strange that this man helped this other man because of where these two were from. But God asks us to love everyone, no matter the differences. We could have different beliefs, we can look differently, but we're all supposed to love each other. So I want you to think about right now. Oh, sorry, Kate, I got distracted. Hey, Thad. Hey, Daphne. I type hi. I got distracted. I kept rambling. So I want you to think right now of friends and family and notice what is different about each of them. You can focus on their looks, or you can also think about maybe certain foods they may like that you don't like. Like, for example, I know that I love tomatoes, and that Will, my husband, doesn't really like them. Sometimes he'll eat them, but for the most part, he doesn't like them. I could just grab them off the vine and just eat them because they are just delicious. So that's something that we're different about. We have a lot of differences actually, which is funny because if people talk to us, we have similarities, but we're very different in a lot of ways. So what makes you different? What makes you different from your family? What makes you different from your friends? Is there a certain sport you might like over a different sport? Is there maybe you look a little differently? So like all my kids and my husband have darker hair and I have lighter hair. So that makes me different. All my kids and my husband have brown eyes and I have blue eyes. So that makes me different. That doesn't make them love me any less. Sometimes my kids say they wish they had my blue eyes, but I tell them all the time they have beautiful eyes. So, but, you know, those are just some differences we may have, and that shouldn't affect how we love one another. Excuse me. So I want you to remember that even though people are different, they are still your friends and family, and they are special. The differences doesn't make us bad. Differences, like I always say, they can be a good thing. It makes things more interesting. So I guess embrace the differences. Learn about the differences. That's how we get along, is learn why people don't like certain things, and just so you can get an idea of why they don't like them. And that sometimes helps us understand. We don't have to always be angry because we're different. That's not what it's about. Be excited that we're not all the same, because that would be very boring. I know I'll bring up the tomatoes again because that's just the easy thing that I know why Will doesn't like them. He doesn't like the texture of them a lot of times, of how they, especially like the cherry tomatoes. He can't stand cherry tomatoes. I love cherry tomatoes. He can't stand the texture and how they pop. So, which is kind of funny to me, but I get it because, you know, I don't like the texture of yogurt. And so I think that's kind of gross, but I know a lot of people that like yogurt. So it's just neat how we all have the differences, and let's learn about our differences, why we're different. We might not agree on things, and that's okay too. We don't have to be different doesn't mean you have to agree on them. So to be a good Samaritan, we need to help others that are in need. We need to learn about our differences and help each other, love one another, treat each other with respect, and just get to know each other. I think getting to know people really helps going through our differences and showing love towards one another and helping each other out. What do you guys think? What makes you different? Embrace that difference, because it's neat to be a different. So on that, we're going to end on a prayer. If you can hear my dog barking, she's a little crazy. That's what makes her different. I don't know why she barks all the time. So as a community, like I said, we need to get to learn and get to know one another, and you can do that. They do that in church too. I meant to tell you this, through our joys and concerns. That's why we have those, so we can learn what's going on in each other's lives. And I like that part of church, and I do miss church dearly, but I like to hear the joys and concerns of what's going on, who's had a baby or what they need prayer for, and it's just nice to get to know people that you normally wouldn't talk to. All right, so let's go ahead and end in a prayer. I'll have you bow your head. Dear God, thank you for each other. Please help us to be better neighbors to one another and to our community. In your name we ask. Amen. All right, guys, I will see you next week. And remember to love one another. And I will see you soon. Bye.